Good morning and welcome to another edition of Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. I'm Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. Three-guest program here on the show this morning. We usually have him last when we are on the show, but we're going to have him first this morning. Decorah School Superintendent Mark Lane will come up here in a couple of moments. We'll get an update from the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce and talk to new director Jessica Rilling for the first time. And we will close out the show this morning with Tom Barnes. He is the executive director of the Association of Iowa Fairs. We'll talk about all 100 Iowa County fairs getting back into action, including his very own Howard County Fair, which will begin next week in Cresco. Mark Lane is our first guest on the program. We'll have him next on Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Time now for our monthly conversation with Decorah School Superintendent Mark Lane as we continue to go through the heat of the month of June. As the air conditioning, good to see it working in the Central Administration office there, Mr. Lane. First of all, let's talk about summer in general. Obviously, last summer, a lot of things were up in the air. Mm-hmm. You had a plan to return to learn. You had to change that plan pretty quickly late in the year before the start of school. Are you guys going to get a chance to relax a little bit this summer, or is there still things that need to be discussed and talked about regarding the world the way it is?
Yeah, no, I mean, it feels like a lot more normal summer. You know, I guess I would say we have been able, the big conversations this summer have been really more around hiring, summer hiring of teachers and associates, which is much more, right, that's more typical for our summer work is going through and finishing up hiring processes. We do meet, and we are talking just about and keeping track of, just things related to COVID. I think there's a big question just around potentially when students even younger than 12 may be eligible for vaccination. And it'll be interesting to see, as we get closer to the school year, in communication with Winneshiek County Public Health, what percentage of our students are receiving vaccination. And so, there's still conversation with Winneshiek County Public Health and with our neighboring districts. But I would say it feels more like a normal summer. And as far as a break goes, I'm actually excited. This summer happens to be my wife and I's 25th wedding anniversary, and we're taking a trip together, just the two of us, and I'm going to be gone next week. So we're celebrating 25 years, and one of I think maybe only the second or third time in 25 years when we've taken a vacation without our children. So yeah. We're looking forward to it.
Well, congratulations on the anniversary. I've made it one as of next Sunday, so I got a few years to catch up to you there, Mr. Lane. But when you touched on the hiring end of things, how many positions do you still need to fill for the fall? And is it all that unusual to still have spots open for the fall at this time of year?
I think right now we actually, we had an interview for a teaching position and made an offer today. So I think right now we have 2 teaching vacancies left to fill. And so, no, I would say that it's pretty typical for not just Decorah, but all districts in Iowa to be engaged in continuing interviewing and hiring into June. You really, I think most superintendents would say you really hope to have your teaching positions filled by July 1st, that if it starts to get after July 1st, you start to feel a little bit more stress and concern about those positions. And then, so I think we will have, let's see, I'm counting. I think we will have had about 8 positions turnover. And I think based on my understanding of past, I think that's pretty typical for us. We have about 125 licensed teachers in the district. And I would say our typical turnover rate in a given school year is probably between 4 to 7%. And that might be because of, right, just typical year, you have a couple retirements, you have maybe a couple people that are moving because of a spouse's job to out of state or to a different town. You may have people who live in a different town in Northeast Iowa, and they've been commuting to Decorah to teach, and they have an opportunity to teach in the town where they live and have maybe a less of a commute, or teach in the same district where their kids go to school. And so I would say those are kind of the typical reasons for turnover in a given year. And I would say I feel like we're about right where we should be. And then really kind of the second half of the summer is typically when we would look at and make sure that we're finishing up and filling any classified positions like paraeducators, nutrition services department. For the first time ever, this last week, we hosted an evening job fair. We haven't ever done that before to just engage interest in people serving as a paraprofessional. And we were really pleased. We had 25 people come to the job fair and talk with our principals and learn more about working as a paraeducator. And so met with the principals this morning and just reviewed the people that we had met that day, and are expecting to reach out to those folks and just engage in further conversation. So our principals really, they liked the approach of the job fair because it gave them an opportunity to meet with, like I said, almost 25 people in about a 2.5 hour span. And to not, I think this will prevent them, in August, between August 1st and the first day of school, of feeling like they really have to scramble to get some of our final classified vacancies filled. So I think this was, it was a successful first job fair.
As for the folks applying for licensed teaching positions, are you getting the same number of applicants that you've had in years past? Is that going in the wrong direction? I've read many things that number is going in the wrong direction. What's it been like in the Decorah School District in your short time here?
It is going in the wrong direction, and it's concerning to all of us. Districts our size and in our part of the state, from conversations I've had with people that have been here longer than I have, if you go back probably 5 to 10 years ago, probably the types of jobs that would have generated the most applications would have been like elementary general education classroom jobs. So people that are certified to teach anywhere from kindergarten through 6th grade. That's a pretty broad licensure, and people, and so you can generate a lot of applications potentially for like a 4th grade teaching job. 5 to 10 years ago in Decorah, a job like a third grade general education teacher position, it likely would have generated 35 to 50 applications. We had a 4th grade posting here in recent weeks, and we were very, very excited to get to 12. We had, and actually on Monday of this week, I participated in a Zoom meeting with the Iowa Department of Education that was open to every superintendent in the state. We have a monthly meeting with the DE that's just kind of an open dialogue, and one of the big questions, or one of the big topics of conversation, was the concern across our state with the reduced number of applications that people are seeing across teaching. It used to be like that, high need areas like special education, or people that were certified to teach advanced mathematics or advanced science classes. Those were jobs where you might only get maybe 5 or 6 applications if you were lucky, but you would still generate, double digits for many other teaching positions. And so what we as a superintendent group really encouraged the Department of Ed was we felt like we really needed to look at trend data with the Board of Educational Examiners who issues licenses. We need to look back over the last 5 years, and as teachers are graduating from programs and applying for licensure in Iowa, what's the gross number that the BOE has received over the last 5 to 10 years? What's the trend there? And then can we disaggregate that? Can we say how many applications for new licensure are we seeing in elementary, in mathematics, in special education? And then honestly, do some questioning around what are places like Luther seeing? What are the preparatory programs seeing in enrollment? It's definitely a concerning issue that is happening across our state, rural, urban, in all corners of the state.
And you touched on some of the things you touched on with the Iowa Department of Education on that front on Monday. Is there a bigger picture we have to look at to make education a little bit more viable of an option for young people to get into?
I think that that's a multifaceted solution. I think that jobs in education, honestly, I think they have become more and more stressful. That people, maybe they know an educator in their life, a parent or an aunt or an uncle, and they look at those folks and maybe they see a level of stress that as they're considering a profession, as they're getting closer to going to college, they say, that's just not interesting to me because I see the wear and tear mentally and emotionally that has on my parent, that has on my aunt, my uncle, my neighbor. And it is a mentally and emotionally exhausting line of work. And many jobs are that, but I think, as a child, I've said both my parents were educators, and I wanted to go into this line of work because I saw the joy that it brought my parents. They loved their jobs. They loved working with children. And I looked at them and I thought, I'd love to do what they do. And it makes me sad that maybe that, I have a daughter who's graduated from college, and I have a son who's a sophomore who just finished his sophomore year in college, and neither one of them went into education. I didn't push them either way. I didn't push them not to, or push them toward it. I let them make up their own choices. But clearly watching me didn't incentivize the way it did for me. And so I think we have to look at teacher compensation and educator compensation. There are many towns where one of the best paying jobs in the community are teaching positions. That's true. But when you think about, or when you compare the starting wage for teachers or average wage at different points of the career, when you think about people that have a 4-year degree, and then on top of that, maybe a 2-year advanced degree or additional education beyond that, people that have 4 to, that have the comparisons to those types of jobs, that education jobs are not as highly paid and highly compensated. We used to be able to say to people, but our benefits packages are maybe better than the private sector, but insurance costs have gone up for everybody. And so it's harder to point to that now and say, well, our insurance package is better than maybe you're going to find in the private sector, and that offsets that. So I think it's multifaceted, and so I think just the emotional wear and tear of the work, and the making sure it's an attractive, and when people consider what they expect for compensation, to be able to pay back student loans, to be able to afford a car payment, a house payment, those are all things that we have to look at. And then I think, we have to start really taking more proactive approach towards making education attractive to groups of people that haven't necessarily pursued education in the future. So in Iowa right now, our student body, students that attend school somewhere in the state of Iowa, about 25% of those students are minorities. Our teacher workforce is less than 3% minorities. And so clearly, if we want our teachers to be reflective and be representative of the students they serve, we could do a much better job of encouraging minority students to pursue careers in education. That it would be great for those 25% of students in Iowa that are minority status, that they see people who look like them, who maybe have a first language that is other than English, that they're a teacher and that's a viable job for them down the road. So I think that's a longer term solution. It's kind of a grow your own solution, but I think we have to talk about those kinds of things of looking at encouraging people that maybe haven't thought of education as a viable career, because nobody that is a teacher looks like me. So why would I consider that? I think we have to think about that too. So
in other words, this isn't going to get solved overnight.
No, it's not. I mean, it's a big issue, and it is going to require thoughtful solutions. And I think we're going to have to look. We're going to have to look at what can we do, because we know people aren't enrolled in the programs right now today. So how are we going to maybe make it so that kids who are entering middle school right now, how might we make education seem more viable, seem more attractive, so that 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, it starts to become a job that more college age people say, oh, that seems like something I'd want to dedicate my life to.
I know one topic of discussion that your board had this week, and I thought it was an interesting and good discussion, was the site of meetings moving forward. Obviously, you have had to adjust in the COVID-19 world that we are living in, but the discussion was brought up about possibly moving back to the boardroom at the central administration office. Various board members had various opinions regarding that, and I thought it was a good discussion. Update us on where your board meetings are going to be moving forward.
I think definitely our July meeting will be at the media center in the middle school. That's where we will be next month. I'm doing some work. What we call our boardroom at our central administration office is, frankly, I don't feel, and I think our board doesn't, it's not a great meeting room. If you've been in it, it can be tight with the number of chairs, and then it's an awkward room with a couple pillars in the middle of the room that make it difficult to have good line of sight. And, I think we all like to have good, eye contact and just in those kinds of settings. And so it's just not a great room. But one of the issues that was brought up is that, when we're in that boardroom and when a meeting's happening, there's just one door that goes back out into the hallway. And, if there were ever an emergency situation, and unfortunately, right, I think we've seen examples of that in school board meetings, in city council meetings around our country at different times, where people feel unsafe, or they feel there's a threat to their safety. And so one of the things that we're examining is the capacity to put a second exit in that space that would allow for there to be an egress that would go back into the hallway, into the main office, but then just an egress that would allow people to go straight outside. And then again, the amount of space. I think in my mind, ideally, we would be able in the future to bring our meetings back to the central administration office. if we have an agenda item or if we're aware that we might have a larger public attendance at a meeting, I think we can be proactive in, and say, well, we need to move the location of this meeting. And we could hold that meeting, in the commons at the high school or in the media center at the middle school. But the meetings that generate larger audiences, I would say that maybe happens, a couple times a year when we have where it feels like that room is getting fuller. But then also, we're adhering to the CDC guidance around that. We're encouraging if people are unvaccinated that they would wear a mask, but if people are vaccinated, it's their choice to wear a mask or not. And so I think, again, there was some hesitation mentioned just around it is a smaller room, and if you get a lot of people in there, people have different levels of comfort with masks and unmasked in a tighter space.
Anything else you want to pass on to the public as we have our monthly conversation? Anything else at the top of the mind of Mark Lane?
I guess I would say one of the things that I'm really, really excited about and that we would want to share more information about as the school year gets closer is a new position that we created, and it was approved in May, and then we hired and made a recommendation here this month. We titled the position a Facilitator of Student and Family Services, and this is a position that we've talked a great deal about, some growing needs in our district. When I first arrived and asked questions about, what might be things that we could do better as a district, our board and our staff talked a lot about, supporting student mental health and well-being, supporting family mental health and well-being, and really the intent of the position is to be that person, who is really laser focused on student well-being, student mental health, supporting families that may need additional assistance. And so I'm excited that the board approved the position. I'm excited about we had a great applicant pool, and we conducted interviews last week, and I made a recommendation to the board that was approved Monday night. And so having that new position in our district as a service to students and families, and working with our principals and our counselors and our teachers, I think is going to be a wonderful thing. And that person will be starting with us on August 2nd. And so as the school year gets closer, we'll be sharing out more information about what that person's role is and how people can start to access the person in that role.
Mark, appreciate the time. Always informative discussion with you each and every month. We'll look forward to our conversation in July, and a guy that knows how to play the guitar like you. I don't have to tell you to do this, but stay cool.
You too, Darren. Thank you.
Mark Lane, Decorah School Superintendent. Talking all things Decorah Chamber now with Jessica Rilling, the new Executive Director of the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce, a few months into her new job as her and her husband moved back to the area. Jessica, first of all, this is the first time we've gotten to check up on you from a radio perspective. Welcome back to town. What drew you back to Decorah and this position in particular?
Yeah, Darren, happy to be here. Well, I have worked with a lot of nonprofits across Iowa and done quite a bit of economic development and what gets referred to a lot as creative placemaking. And I love it. My husband, Justin Rilling, and I have talked for years about getting back to Decorah. And I think this will be probably a common story. You watch for job openings that might work for you. I was very excited to see the chamber posting, and my husband was able to move to be full-time remote worker for BAE Systems. And so something we'd talked about doing for years, we were able to make happen in 2020, which is not in the middle of a pandemic. So it was an unexpected timeline, but yeah, we're delighted. It's summer here now. And just feeling really blessed. So thank you. We're excited to be back. Yeah.
And what have been the first few months of the job been like? How have you kind of gotten used to this new position? You've mentioned you've worked a lot regarding issues that Chamber of Commerce's deal with in the past, but what's been the first few months of this particular position been like?
Yeah, well, I started and COVID was still very much a thing. So the first few months were a lot of introductions on Zoom. I'm really excited that now I'm meeting people in their full form and can see their whole face. That's been great. But the first few months, a lot of learning on my end for how the Chamber has served Decorah in the past. I feel lucky to have so many professionals that are connected to the Chamber through a committee or Downtown Betterment, for example, and Nordic Fest. And the Chamber is this wonderful hub for a lot of those community leaders and action takers. So yeah, that's those first few months is starting to meet the membership, learning about what's here, and doing it as a chamber director, not just as a resident or a visitor. So it's been really fun. The visitor center is a happening place, Darren. It's busy, and I will say it's been actually a great way for me to just combine kind of the education piece. So I learn a lot from the people that are coming in, and then also a lot from just those more formal meetings with people that are running businesses and elected officials. And so, yeah, we also were able to do some events even with COVID. So we did a virtual gala. I know people in the community really have enjoyed the in-person events. We were able to do a trivia night and still have some fun. So we found some ways to adapt here, like in that first quarter of the year. But yeah, we've got, it's actually been a big week. You're calling at a great time. I have an intern, Lauren Miley, who started on Monday. And I have a new director of operations and member services, Amanda Streeper, who also started Monday. So we're having just a big orientation and onboarding week, and excited really for all the things we're going to be able to do together. So that was one of the, I don't know which step that was, 1, 2, or 3, but build the chamber team, and it's happening right now. I'm excited for people to meet those talented individuals.
Knowing the fact you've worked with organizations that have chamber type functions in the past, in general, how are those organizations similar, and how does each organization have its own uniqueness?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say over time, it's a fascinating area to be in and to learn about, because each town does have their own entity. Maybe it's a Main Street program, maybe it's a chamber, maybe it's community, betterment, maybe it's Convention and Visitors Bureau. But in Iowa, we have a lot of different names for the people who do these things. Decorah is really lucky to have such a robust sector for that. We have Winnebago County Development and Tourism. We have the Chamber, Downtown Decorah Betterment, which is a powerhouse of a community and works under the Chamber umbrella. So, the short answer is for the size, Decorah has an unusually high number of active and very engaged community members and organizations. So that's been delightful. And it's nice having that experience from working with a lot of other towns to come in and really just, honestly, I feel very lucky with how engaged folks are here, and just very, I feel like very knowledgeable when it comes to the value of tourism, the value of economic development, and all the ways that collaboration can lift up a town. You really can't have too many people doing this type of work. It's there's a lot of it out there. So that's one of the things I'm most excited about, is not just the things that have traditionally happened, but being able to bring in some ideas that have happened other places. And, just with our capacity here, being able to maintain what's traditionally happened, but also incorporate new and exciting things. I think Decorah is a leader for a lot of stuff in Iowa. And I really think we can really lift up when it comes to community development, really be a leader in that as well. So.
Speaking of traditional stuff, Nordic Fest coming back here in 2021. There was something empty about last year. Well, a lot of things empty, and then not having Nordic Fest for a lot of local residents was one of those. The planning is underway. It's been underway for quite some time. How are things going? How are you going to make this fest work and make it a unique event that it always is?
Yeah, the board has, I've been so impressed. So they just had their most recent meeting Monday night. And the big attractions that everyone is familiar with and loves, for the most part, are all back this year. The run, the parade, the fireworks, opening ceremonies, the food booths. So all the things that we're very anxious to have back in our lives. The timeline for decision making did prevent an arts and crafts component. So I think typically the arts and crafts show has happened in the middle school. It's not going to happen this year, but it will be back in 2022. And then a couple of the other changes, they spread children's activities out throughout the downtown, which is good for a lot of reasons. They were talking about that in the midst of COVID, but actually I'm really loving how that plan's playing out. I think it'll be a change that they may very well keep, because it's really turning out nice. Let's see, the what was like the beer garden or the beverage garden is kind of evolved, and now the block in front of Vesterheim and the Chamber will have the beverage little houses. There's a new one that was built for that. So this block that is going to just really be a happening spot here at the Visitor Center. It's always been kind of headquarters, but music. And we were wondering early on about how we might handle some of the COVID pieces. And the board did a wonderful job with, distancing where they could and making modifications, and all the ways we're talking about increasing sanitation and cleaning and frequency. The trends are looking all really great. So I know at one point they had wondered if they would have to do plexi on the food booths. And it's looking like that they may not have to, which is, I'm sure everyone working in those will be happy that they aren't losing that breeze of cool air. Really in so many ways looking similar to what everyone would be used to. So just a couple modifications and adaptations. And I'm excited. It'll be my first one working headquarters. So I'll be sure to still get a Varmapolsa. That's my pick always. But just really excited to be on this side of it and be a host for the community.
As for the overall getting people to a community, I know I read a lot of places where the places that had outdoor amenities survived the COVID-19 pandemic a little better than places that didn't have rivers and trails and all those amenities that the Decorah area brings to the table. Is that what you have found from people coming to the visitor center saying, hey, you know what, we might not get to take that big vacation this year, but we got to take advantage of the amenities that we still have, and nature is still open, and Decorah is a good spot for that. Is that some of the feedback that you've been getting?
Yes, and folks that work the visitor center in 2020, I know that the periods of time they were open, there was heavy recreational use for Northeast Iowa. People felt comfortable being in outdoor spaces. So still a lot of interest in hiking the beautiful trails and floating the river, and maybe just a little bit more selective in how they were coming into town, and, maybe picking up food to go, or, just a little more cautious on that side. But we still saw a tremendous amount of folks coming into the area, maybe just experiencing it in a little bit different way. Decorah has got some great outdoor seating and more that was added actually, even since July. If you haven't been down yet, Darren, to the landing, that would be, you know, within the last year, and huge patio. So there's actually been an increase in that outdoor seating, which people are really watching for, and even still, I think. But yeah, we're seeing that trend pick up again in 2021. I think people are feeling more comfortable. So, and here in Decorah, I would say, for the most part, everything is kind of back to, you know, normal. We still have a few places that maybe aren't quite at 100% capacity, but folks coming into town will be able to experience, you know, the dining in, and really, yeah, it's feeling great. I know business owners and visitors alike, just really, people's spirits are lifted.
And I know in the short term, one of the things, chamber specific events coming up is your golf outing in the not too distant future. Is that correct?
Yeah, they weren't able to have it last year, so we're really excited to have that back. It's actually Monday, June 28th, and we put Joe Gavley, our board president, in charge of the weather, and it's going to be great. He's really good at that. So just a beautiful day, I'm sure, and really, yeah, back in its original form. So a lot of fun at each of the holes on the golf course, you know, games, and just a presence by a lot of businesses and organizations. And I know people are really looking forward to playing. So if there is some interest, we still have room for some teams to register, and on the Chamber's homepage, there is a click here to register your team. So we still have room for more. So yeah, check it out.
I know Joey Gavley has never let me down, and I've known him a heck of a long time. So it's going to be a beautiful day that day out at Oneota. And I guess as long as we got you here, anything else you want to pass on to the public, chamber related?
Oh, well, I think just I'm really looking forward to meeting people in person. So I've gotten to meet quite a few people on the phone and over Zoom, and now am able to incorporate more of those out and about in-person visits. So I think just that I'm looking forward to that. That was one of the things that I was so excited about with this job. The people part is my favorite. So I look forward to meeting you if I haven't met you yet. That's what I'll add.
All right, Jessica, we appreciate you taking some time updating us on everything going on with the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce. Never a dull moment with your organization. Thanks for taking the time, and here's to a great summer in Decorah, Wenatchee County, and all over the area.
Thank you, Darren. It was great to see you.
Jessica Rilling from the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce. County fair season is about ready to begin in the state of Iowa and in the tri-state area. And next week, it's the Mighty Howard County Fair in Cresco. And with us to talk about it, Tom Barnes from the Mighty Howard County Fair. And Tom, I know 2020 was a negative year for a lot of things. The lack of county fairs probably topped that list for me as someone who kind of grew up in the fair business with my family. Mm-hmm. How good of a feeling is it to just get back into the organized chaos of getting a fair together this year?
Gives you a purpose in life if you're in the fair industry. Truthfully, it's you know, not to beat a dead horse about last year, but it was tough. You know, the worst part was and a lot of fairs went through this, as you know, in the tri-state area and all over. But when you made the decision to cancel or postpone, whatever you want to call it, okay, that was done. But I know when I hit the week of our normal fair, it was tough. I mean, you just had, did I do it right? Did we make the correct decision? Maybe we should have done this. But all in all, we did it, and for the safety of the general public and everybody else. And but this year, everybody's back. Everybody's looking forward to it. We're hearing a lot of positive talk about people wanting to get back involved, be at the fair, help at the fair. So, it's quite exciting, and it's a great boost to your mentality. Don't know if I should actually call it that, but it does help you get back into the mode and get focused on what we are programmed to do, and that's present a great fair.
I know you've been active in the Howard County Fair, obviously, for many years. You've also been active in the Association of Iowa Fairs for quite some time. As an industry, how did county fairs handle last year? How are they planning to rebound just to make sure that this can be something that can be sustainable heading into the future?
Well, if there's one thing that all the fairs in Iowa, speaking for Iowa fairs, learned is how to adapt. For many years you just go and it's routine, you do your same thing and all this, and then when we got thrown the curveball like we did last year, fairs had to adapt. And although I believe the count was 85 or 86 fairs in Iowa, did not happen at all, but did some sort of youth show and go type event. All of a sudden we had a month to reevaluate how that's going to happen and to make sure that we could do something safely. The early fairs in June were basically the guinea pigs of trying to make that happen, and our later fairs learned by what the early fairs did correctly and did not do correctly. So all the fairs that, as we've been talking to at our conference this winter, the Association of Fairs Conference, there's a lot of focus on what to do this year and what to bring into the mix of something that we haven't brought in before. And that's, trying to keep the people safe. We've been doing it many years on the E. coli side, on the animal disease side, where fairs have been very proactive about trying to make sure that people are aware of the fact that there are some things that could happen with animal disease, although it's been very good to say that we haven't seen it, but we just got to practice it. Now we got to transfer that to the human side. A lot of fairs that are planning right now are looking at, we still have the sprayers with the hand sanitizers and all that. We'll be utilizing that kind of stuff here during our fair, spacing things out as best we possibly can. What's really helped the fairs be able to kick off this year is the vaccination. I mean, that has turned the tide, if you want to call it that. Until the governor of Iowa released people to go to mass events, if you're especially with the vaccination, it's that changed the attitude of a lot of our fairs. It changed the general public's attitude. There were skeptics 3-4 months ago, but whether you believe in the vaccination or not, it did change the public's perception of getting back into a norm. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that really is generating the enthusiasm that we're seeing now in the fair industry in Iowa.
And when you talk about getting back into normal, when you planned this year's event that will start next week in Cresco, did you start planning like you normally would, as if the event was going to occur, and maybe wait for the governor's get-go? How'd you manage that? Because I'd imagine that was a little bit of a difficulty in planning for this year, because we dealt with the unknown for quite some time.
Well, as you know, last year when we did postpone, and which most all the fairs did, we were very fortunate. We had a time frame to postpone in order to either adjust contracts with entertainment or cancel contracts with entertainment. So we look at anymore, if you look at a fair or a concert, even with that fact, no matter what, you're looking at October, November-ish the previous year to have everything in place. So we, as a lot of fairs did, rolled our contracts from 2020 to 2021. We were fortunate here with our entertainers that they, even though prices went up to them with our major entertainer, Russell Dickerson, they held their 2020 price. Our stage and lights people held their price. It was good to see that cooperation across the board. So, really, when we started planning for this year, back in October for your entertainment, we still weren't sure what we're going to do as far as being able to do it, how we're going to space people out. As you know what a concert's like. Social distancing is little or none. And you just got to hope and pray that things do change, which they did. But we planned, and I think all our fairs in our area are thinking the same thing. We planned for a quote normal event. We learned some things last year if we have to jump in and change a few things. And in the fair business, we're based on things happen, you change. Things happen, we do things. Things happen, we make adjustments. We basically fly not by the seat of our pants, but if you get what I'm saying, because you know very well what the fair industry is like with your family involvement, where it's not going to go as you had normally planned for the most part. There's last minute changes, adjustments, demands on your contract writers, et cetera. So you have to be flexible is the good word for it. So we, as in our county fair, planned for a quote normal event with the thought that, okay, if this happens, we'll do it this way, and different things like that. I know our vendors were somewhat cautious, and that was fine. But here late this spring and this past month, they've been, now all of a sudden we're full again, which is good. I had plans of spacing things out, and we still are doing that. We're giving them a little extra room, trying to make things more comfortable for people. So I guess, to answer your question, we plan as normal, but what happens if we gotta do something different? So it's always in the back of your mind.
And the grandstand entertainment will get underway next Wednesday night. Why don't you just run down what folks will be seeing in front of the grandstand starting next Wednesday night?
Wednesday night is East Central Iowa Pullers Association sanctioned truck and tractor pull. Great group to work with. We've had them for several years. Thursday night is stock car races, our traditional night at the fair. This year, we're really excited to bring in the Holker Trucking Super Late Model Series on Thursday night. Great group of late models that come with that series. And the neat thing about that is one reason why we really went after that series is the next night they're in Fayette County, and then the night after that they're in Buchanan County. But north of us, Friday and Saturday night at Deer Creek is the Go for 50. So late model guys are coming in a day or two early and looking to do some try to do some extra work or testing on their cars, or maybe run for a few extra bucks. So it worked out good for us. And then also we're going to run our typical area classes. These guys have been the supporters of our racetrack and other racetracks around the area with the USRA sanctioned B-mods, stock cars and hobby stocks. And those cars will run for national points, or those three classes will. So be a good Thursday night program. Let's see, where are we? Friday night, we're going to have a fun night. We've had a lot of requests to go to back. We used to have Hairball for a 3 years, and they're always booked on the East Coast now in the end of June, so we can't get them back. But we do have a group, two groups actually, that night. And actually the main group, Rock Gods, it's not the Rock Gods from around this area that people heard. It's a different group, different spelling. They're out of the Kansas City area, and they're made up of former members of Hairball. They do a very similar show to Hairball, where they have 6 or 7 different lead singers, the costume changes, the whole ball of wax. Opening up for them, and the two groups they use basically some of the same musicians in each group. So it really works good to package these two bands together. The other one is the #1 disco experience in the United States, Disco Dick and the Mirrorballs. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's a great group. It gets into that disco era of music, that funk, and that should be a lot of fun. Saturday night, of course, is Russell Dickerson, national recording artist, country artist, few #1 hits, great following, great concert. Opening up for him will be Madhouse Jackson, which is really one of the bands that we like to bring back every so often because people around here love them. And we'll move them to the beer garden after the concert. So we'll have a lot of fun Saturday. And then Sunday night, we're going to end with Rogue Rodeo, great rodeo company. out of Iowa that does a good job there. They do a lot of the county fairs in Iowa, so people know them. And it's a great full-blown rodeo. And that's our grandstand.
And I believe you're doing the buttons as usual
Yes.
again this year. Is that correct?
Yes, we are. $30 now. They're area merchants until Wednesday of Fair Week, and then you can buy them at the fair office next week. And that's just $40 if you buy them at the fair. You know, so you look at the entertainment you have. Where I think I added up. We do sell single night passes. So if somebody just wants to come to the stock car races or one of the concerts, you can buy a single night pass, but you're saving like 70 some bucks. Yeah, I mean, if you buy a button, you go every night if you want. So it's a good deal. And, you know, a lot of our fairs are doing some sort of promotion like that. It's a good thing for our communities. We are, when you look at our entertainment these days, the last few years, we're spending more on entertainment now than we did on the whole fair a few years ago. So how things have changed. So, you know, there's ways to make that up. You got to get seats filled, the track filled, in order to pay those bills. And of course, the refreshments that the fair sells, that's what pays the bills. So you just hope it's a nice day and they're thirsty people, and you know, we have a lot of fun.
And I believe you got Evans United Shows back on the Midway once again. Is that correct?
That is correct. Evans United Show has been part of our fair since 1974. Tom and Nancy Evans, great people. You know them well. They're great friends of your family, and as well as ours. And great folks. Tom and Nancy, same age as my wife and I, Sue. And you know, I just don't know what to say more than they're a great bunch of carnival people, great people that work for them. Very courteous, very conscientious about safety and treating the public right. So we're really excited to have Evans United Shows back on the Midway this year.
All right, Tom, give us one final sales pitch here. Tell us why we should head to Cresco next week as fair season gets back rolling here in the Tri-States.
You know, we feature free gate, free parking, so you don't have to spend a buck to come to the fair. There's several major free grounds entertainment, a lot of contests, support our youth. That's why we exist, is because we're there to support our 4-H and FFA kids and their projects, and we're here to promote our community. So those are the number 1 and 2 reasons why a fair exists, and everything else is there to just have fun. But, you know, we're here to support the community, bring people together. A lot of really neat things to do. And of course, Darren, what can you do and say without I'm trying to say it, without that fair food?
You bet.
I mean, that's once a year type thing. We can have a little fun. We've got 3 new vendors this year offering different types of ethnic foods and different things like that. So it's, you know, the food, the camaraderie, the seeing the people, the entertainment, the free stuff. Just a good week to get together.
No doubt about it. And again, we've been trying to look as forward as possible and not touch on 2020. You touched on the 4-H and the FFA. I know you were able to do a little show and go type of show last year related to that. How good did it feel to give those young people at least a little bit of an opportunity last year, despite not having the full-fledged fair?
Well, like I said, that's why we exist. And we, you know, there was a lot of how do we do it? Can we do it safely? And no doubt about it, every fair did something for their youth, and the participation was low. We kind of expected that because the families were uncertain about getting together and stuff. But we made the effort to do something for the youth, to give them something back for the projects they did. Some chose to carry their projects over to 2021. That's just great. But we just got to support our youth organizations the best we can and give back to those young kids. They're going to be sitting in this seat someday. So we need to make sure that we promote them as we go forward.
Very well said, Tom. Tom, fun to be talking about fairs again. Best of luck to you next week. And as my dad always said, we do need some rain, but let it rain between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. And hopefully you guys can have a great week of weather and a great week. And it's, again, fun to be talking about fairs again.
Your dad and I go back a long time. And when I first got on in '83 as our secretary, there wasn't a week that went by that I didn't have a phone conversation or two with him every week. And he taught me a lot. it's true. I mean, that's where it comes from, is what you just said, is fair rain during the fair is good, keeps farmers out of the field, but it needs to be between that midnight and 4 a.m. time slot. So it's easier on the Fairfield folks. So we usually get a shower during our fair, so we just hope it's at the right time. Let's put it that way.
All right. Tom Barnes from the Howard County Fair starts next week in Cresco. Fair season back in the Tri-States here in 2021. Our thanks to our guest on the program this morning, Mark Lane, Decorah School Superintendent, Jessica Rilling from the Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce, and Tom Barnes from the Howard County Fair. Great to have fairs back here in 2020, the Howard County Fair beginning next week in Cresco. Don't forget to check out YouTube each week, and we actually air this program via video each and every week. Video conversations with area newsmakers, area people involved in community events, everything like that. What we bring you on Our Town each and every week, you can watch it on our YouTube channel. You can search Our Town program on YouTube, and you can also click the link. We put it up on the Rivers Facebook page each and every week as well. So our thanks to our guest this morning, Mark Lane, again, Decorah School Superintendent, Decorah Area Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, Jessica Rilling, and Tom Barnes from the mighty Howard County Fair, which will begin next week in Cresco. Our thanks to our guest, our thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust, and our thanks to you for tuning in, logging on, or watching Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River.